Hey everybody, welcome to Jeff Nation. Be here to slap that like and follow. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
You can
Taylor.
restart it.
No, that's
It's fine.
that's great.
Throw some colors on the screen and paint me black and white. I wanna see a thief in a gunfight or a heroine wounded in love. You can keep her lighted by an old flame left to frame, so I can read the feeling on her face, half in shadow, and know I felt that too. In danger and in love, you've got the dreams I was dreaming of, and I've got 2 hours to pretend. So I watch a movie with a friend. Time's running sideways, and reality's gotta meet me halfway. So I'll meet it here again. Here's the Trading Movies podcast with friends.
Hello, my name is Jeff, and this is the Trade Movies podcast. And I'm joined today by Taylor Wilson, who is a local aspiring filmmaker, and I want to say friend of mine. When did we meet? Probably it's been 11 years. You think?
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely Maryville College. So
Yeah.
it's
When
where I know most people nowadays anyway. So
we're immediately doxing ourselves, but who cares? Yeah, we both went to Maryville. I think. Did you graduate 2014 as well?
no, I was 2013.
2013. Okay, so you're a year older. Were you a writing major?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Okay, so you were writing major 1 year above me. All right.
Yeah, did the
Cool.
writing, did the Holland Echo, all that stuff.
So Taylor, what movie did you pick this week, and why?
I picked the movie Timecrimes or Los Crímenes. It's a Spanish movie from 2007, and I picked this movie because, well, I think it's cool. I think it's rad. I think it's got cool vibes, and you know, I found this movie. So back in high school, I had always liked movies, but it was pretty much standard stuff, your Hollywood classics and blockbusters. And I decided I was gonna get into like real indie nitty gritty stuff. And at the time that wasn't really, it was stuff like Little Miss Sunshine, Thank You for Smoking, Napoleon Dynamite, stuff that's like super accessible, super for an indie movie, probably pretty high budget with big name actors and stuff. But this was the one that I think was actually like one of my first OG kind of lesser known movies that I found. And I found it because at the time and still today, I'm like a diehard, obsessive super freak of the show Lost.
Mm.
And I want to say that the showrunner at the time, Damon Lindelof, was like, "Hey, this movie rules. Go see it." And so I remember I was like, "Okay, yes, Captain." So I went to the video store, still had those, got the DVD and rented it, and yeah, I've been a fan of it since back then. And yeah, I thought it'd be kind of an interesting, lesser known pick to talk about.
That is, yeah, that's fascinating. It's funny you say like it's like the time that you start like getting into movies or whatever you start watching. I recently got a uh what is it, a NAS, and like a digital network attached storage, because I've been ripping all the movies that we watch. Like that's one of the reasons I have the movie up today. So it's like I'll watch it and then I'll rip it because I want like a backup for my Blu-ray collection. That's the
Hmm.
like legit explanation. Really, I'm just like a hoarder, like a digital hoarder, for all that
Yeah.
type of stuff. And what was funny is I found my old hard drive from, honestly, starting in 2007 and like 2008, 2009, when I was torrenting a lot of movies around the same time. Just be like, I'm gonna get in, like, I want to watch all these like movies and other movies. And it's funny that like, I don't know that this movie was from 2007, because that's, we're about the same age. I think I might be a year older than you. Are you 91?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm nine. I failed out of my first college, so I got back
Okay.
a
So
couple of years. But yeah, it's basically same age. And yeah, like a lot of those same movies, like Little Miss Sunshine, or God, what was on my hard drive? It was like even stuff like uh
Squid and the Whale kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Squid and the Whale.
Yeah.
I love Squid and the Whale. Yeah, that was Noah Baumbach. I adored that movie. That movie actually, weirdly, my former partner and I, that's how I found out about Park Slope in Brooklyn. I remember watching that movie, and they live in the neighborhood Park Slope. I was like, that looks kind of nice, and we actually ended up living basically right where they are in that movie for like 3 years when we lived in New York.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the movie. That was like, I remember, I think I showed my ex that movie and was like, yeah, this neighborhood looks pretty cool, because my dad was from New Jersey, but I didn't really know much about Brooklyn. My grandpa was from there, but he like back in the 1920s. So
yeah.
But yeah, there's like Squid and the Whale. What are those other? I need to just like Google 2007. 2007 was a great year for movies. That's the other thing I was. That was the year. No Country for Old. For some reason, randomly a lot of good westerns that year. No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. I think 310. The 310 to Yuma is that. I haven't seen that one. I've seen the original is one of my favorite movies, but I haven't seen that one. But all those like, yeah, go ahead.
Darjeeling Limited. I love that movie. Like, I think that was that. Oh, really? That's one of my favorites.
I want to say, who won the Oscar this year? I'm looking at the highest grossing films, and I don't know how many of 2007 was like Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End. Here, I haven't seen. I think I've seen that. Harry Potter, Order of the Phoenix, of course. Spider-Man 3. That was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in theaters.
Yeah, I worked at a movie theater. It was my first job that summer, so I remember that summer. That was also like Transformers came out. Yeah, I remember I worked at the theater for a while, and that really rundown Carmike theater that's long gone now. But
was that the one near the Guitar Hero in Knoxville? Taylor and I are both from Knoxville. Are you from Knoxville?
Yeah, more or less. I've lived around East Tennessee, but this was in Maryville actually, so that's where I like spent my time. Yeah.
Oh, is that the really cool one that was near where the Kroger is or whatever?
Yeah. Okay. That's exactly where it was.
This is only for East Tennessee people, so I hope you're enjoying it, East Tennessee people. I love that theater. Yeah. I saw the Lorax in that theater.
Yeah, it was not a good job, but it was a job and it was fun, and I saw a lot of movies, and I mean, to go back to the like indie, like I watched like probably like 5 or 6 indie movies coupled with a bunch of blockbusters, and I just thought I was like the biggest cinephile, dude. I was like, yeah, I know movies. So
absolutely. Yeah, there was okay, so the 2007, I need to go to the 80th Academy Awards. No Country for Old Men won it. Atonement, Juno, Michael Clayton. So I don't think I've watched Atonement, but I remember I have like an old torrent of Juno, Michael Clayton. Love Michael Clayton. Was just watching clips from that again this week, and I think I have stuff like even Away from Her, which I think is that year. I don't think I ever seen it, but I remember seeing it on my hard drive. Charlie Wilson's War, which is a crazy movie.
I really like that movie, and there's a joke I do about Charlie Wilson's War. There was like an Onion article or something, and it was like 8 gifts to get the Charlie Wilson's War super fan in your life. One of them was like a bumper sticker, and it has like the budget. It'd be like a budget 15 million, box office 23 million. Any questions?
Yeah. I honestly, that's like, he's like, I don't want to say my guilty pleasure. He's kind of my guilty pleasure, I think, Sorkin, because he's, I don't know, his politics are very strange, but I really just love like he's kind of like one of the closer things I think we have to like a 1930s, 1940s, like screwball comedy type writer. And so like a lot of the individual scenes in Charlie, like all of his individual scenes that he writes are like just so good. Like in Charlie, have you seen Charlie Wilson's War? Like that, the whole scene where Tom Cruise is like, anything Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm actually wearing my Philip Seymour Hoffman Magnolia shirt today, but he's so good in that. Yeah. But it's a movie about like, it's like it's like a movie. It's like a heroic movie about like getting more missiles into Afghanistan, which is just like a wild concept. But it's like a hero movie about that. I remember in like the 80s or whatever. That I think that's the last movie Mike Nichols ever did too, which is also weird to think about because I think he did The Graduate in 1967. And I think he might have bookended his career with The Graduate and Charlie Wilson's War, which Honestly, if someone picks The Graduate, I'll probably pick Charlie Wilson's War just to
Yeah.
go on like either edge of it, because it's just weird to think. I don't know. It's like 40 years difference, I think, from 67 to '07. But okay, he did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf a year before that. I don't think I've seen a lot of his movies.
That's his final film, though?
Yeah. Have you seen The Graduate?
No.
Graduate's a good one. Well, I think it's a good one. That was another one probably around that time that was on my hard drive in 2007. It was just like, I'm going to start watching more and more of these movies and really, really catch up.
I think you probably actually committed to it more than I did, because I have this pretty big like blind spot of movies before a certain time. Any cool, weird indie movie from like, let's say the past like 15 years, there's a really good chance I've seen it. Before that, I mean, even some of the ones that you might consider like a classic, like, I mean, I still have movies like After Hours on my watch list, like never seen that.
I just finally watched that last year.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I've never seen Scarface. So like,
which one?
The one that's on the poster of every college guy's dorm room.
That's a great one. That's probably one of my favorite De Palma movies. But the original is actually the 1932 one. Just came out in Criterion. It's super, super good.
Yeah.
It opens up with this like, that movie is part of the reason there was so much censorship from with the Hays Code from 34 to 68, because they made, I think I think it's Tony Montana, right, in the De Palma one, but I believe in the old one it's Tony Kamane, and I think it's Paul Muni, and they made him look so cool in that movie that it basically like it kind of like caused a lot of the censorship from like 34 to 68. That, I think, in Little Caesar and Public Enemy. It's really good. It's like, it's Howard Hawks, who I adore. I think it was one of his first movies, and produced by Howard Hughes, which is another movie. I've found my my list of movies that I'd torrented. You got Adventureland, 2009, right?
Yeah.
Apocalypto. I have a funny story about Apocalypto, that this girl I had a crush on in high school. This like really religious girl. She had only seen like 4 movies in her life, like Disney movies, Passion of the Christ. And then because she watched Passion of the Christ, she recommended Apocalypto. And I loved it. I was in that mode where I'll do anything to like, talk to this girl. And she's like, you got to watch Apocalypto. And I was like, sure. And I adore that movie. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. This is wild to look at. Yeah, it's pretty much just like, there's nothing, because I stopped torrenting movies basically around then. Because I think I got a letter from my ISP about downloading George Clooney's The American, and my housemates were like,
oh really?
Like, yeah, they were kind of freaked out by it, so I didn't torrent for a while.
Yeah. You're pretty big on like physical media, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, now I am, for sure. Yeah.
But I assume you buy the media and then rip it from there to add it to like your own collection.
Yes, and not only am I ripping it, but I'm ripping it like, I'm storing it like very high quality. So I'm eventually going to need like 1,000 petabytes of data, because like I'm trying to store it at like the original Blu-ray quality as best as possible. I mean, to the extent that you can, with like a lot of these movies I used to torrent, like they're compressed and whatever. But part of the reason I do the physical media is for the uncompression and all that.
Yeah, I'm really big on it. There are definitely certain movies that I only have on digital just out of convenience, because I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to watch that right now. I like that. I don't want to wait. I'm just going to buy it. But I am awaiting the day that I get a notification or an email that's like, hey, there's been a merger or something, and you can't watch this movie that you bought, and you get nothing, but I hope you liked it. I don't know how to do all that stuff. I'm not a computer person, so like ripping things off of, like, I'm just not that guy. Are you doing that for the impending apocalypse, kind of like you're gonna be the keeper of the sacred text?
Honestly, I don't. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I like, part of me is just like, well, it can't hurt. Like, there is definitely a thing, just to be totally honest, and the thing in my back of my mind that's like, a lot of I think there was like a new John Ford movie. I'm sitting next to have this huge, like, I bought it for my Christmas for myself. I bought this huge John Ford box set, and it's like 20 pounds. It has 24 films. But John Ford, one of everybody's favorite director from like the 50s and 40s, and I think he worked from like 1910 to 1955. And I think most of his silent films are lost, and the places they would find him are like, I think one just was just found in Chile, I think like last year or something, and it's like just some theater down there had a copy of it. And so there's so many copies of like, probably H.G. Wells' The Time Machine or whatever, or Timecrimes or whatnot, that I don't think that's like a thing, but it couldn't hurt. And then also just like it's honestly some of them about like having them on the highest quality. And then like I generally go through, like when I'm doing my TikTok or YouTube, I'll rip them as high quality as I can, because a lot of this stuff, like, it's either, if I'm like showing a clip in my little TikTok or YouTube channel for my daily reviews, I'll sometimes get clips from YouTube or wherever I can find them and rip them. But a lot of the times, like, there's just not very high quality. Like His Girl Friday, there's not really, for whatever reason, there's like almost no high quality clips of that, and especially the audio is bad on the YouTube versions. And so when I'm showing stuff, part of the intention is to get people to watch the movie. So especially for like black and white, I can like make sure it's ripped at like really good quality, and then hopefully that'll encourage people to see more of the beauty in that stuff, I guess. So some of it is, I think that this version of Timecrimes was really good. I was really happy with I love the way this was shot, which we can get into in a minute. Reminded me of like Minority Report and like 2006 Xbox type stuff, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, I mean, you're talking about preserving film, and I guess I was surprised to learn, probably like 10 years ago, I guess I first learned this, to like, if you don't actively try to like store media and take care of it and preserve it, it will eventually just go away forever.
Yeah.
And there's a whole dedicated thing to that of like, maintaining stuff on hard drives and transferring copies. And, it's crazy to think that like there were movies that were maybe really big movies, super well known, commonplace, that functionally don't really exist anymore.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that for John Ford, especially. I mean, he's like, I think he won Best Director 4 times, and like probably from everyone like New Hollywood, 50s, 60s, 70s, like all the French guys, Akira Kurosawa, like everyone's a John Ford fan. And it's just, I think like half of his filmography is just lost. And Scorsese had a good quote when he talked about how him and a bunch of those other New Hollywood guys, I think they started the Film Foundation to restore a lot of it. They were like, they basically was like, even in Hollywood, the state, when they started it in like the 70s or whatever, was so bad, and so many films were lost that like they're like, and this is Hollywood, and like so they're like, all the stuff from around the world and everywhere else, like they can't even, that was part of the reason they did it, is because like if Hollywood was like this, then surely like places with not as much money or established structures or whatever were bad. And honestly, so for podcast listeners or whatever, I try and listen, watch. I typically watch like a movie every day because I'm insane. And a lot of the stuff, even with that, it's crazy to think about all the stuff that doesn't have a re-release. A couple I recently did on my channel, there's this one, Jonah Paris, which has some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've ever seen in any movie. By this guy Russell Meddy, who shot like a lot of this Douglas Sirk stuff from the 50s. It's really lush and beautiful, and it just has a basic DVD copy. And it's weird. It's weird to think about. It's not only just like restoring it so that it even has a copy of it, but then it's like restoring it so that it's has like a nice transfer, that the grading is good or ideally close to intention, and that it's also accessible. Because like I think this copy of Timecrimes I bought was I think this was probably an American one, but I believe, what was I watching last night? I was watching some other movie that only had a Region B release. I think one I recently watched was Suddenly Last Summer, that I think only has like a pretty good quality Region B release. I think I'm probably wrong, and someone's going to correct me, but even stuff like that is just kind of, I don't know, crazy to think about.
How do you get around that whenever you get something that's locked in? Like, you just like rip it or something?
There is you can get a region free player. So I have there's a couple sites. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the sites because I don't know, but if you Google on Reddit, there's like one site that'll do it. That basically they just sell a modified Blu-ray player, and you just can switch regions on it, and makes it really easy. I can tell you after the show if you want, because it's I think I bought one, and I bought one for my brothers for a Christmas gift, so I can, because he also collects Blu-rays, and so I can bring stuff over to watch. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So is your kind of standard like practice, right? You're like, okay, I've been wanting to watch this movie. Is it I'm gonna find it, see if I like it first, and stream it or something, and then watch it, and then I'll buy it, or is it like I've been wanting to watch this, never seen it, time to order it, like I'm getting that physical copy right now?
physical copy pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, because generally I want to watch something as for me most of the time I generally want to watch it in a certain, like I like to watch it in as high quality as I can generally, just for me. But that's not, I don't think that's necessarily, I'm not going to argue that that's like correct or whatever. But my preference is generally to watch it like on my big TV. I have a pretty big TV, with pretty good speakers, and watching it like on disc. Um, and yeah, typically I'll order something. A lot of, I mean, it's easier for me, I think, also because most movies I tend to like. I'm just like a movie gourmand instead of a movie gourmet or whatever. Like I'm not doing, I don't know, like I just end up liking most things, I feel. Um, so yeah, and I also like the special features, and being able to rip it at like the high quality and all that is like definitely a part of it. Um, but I know like a lot of people are into like VHS, right? And they like, I think there's a guy, shout out Knox VHS. I can't remember his last name, but Mike, who used to work at Grindhouse Video, which unfortunately closed their physical store in Knoxville, but they're still online. A shout out Grindhouse. But this guy Mike, I think he did like Knox VHS or something like that. I'm sorry, Mike, that I can't remember, but he like, him and like other people, I think like they actually take movies and like transfer them onto VHS because they prefer that format, which I think is really neat and does like, I think I think I probably have like 10 or 12 VHSs. I don't think I have a player.
Yeah.
Maybe I have one somewhere, but like that's also a neat way to watch it. I'd like to start probably watching more stuff like that, because it does feel weird when I watch like some low budget stuff from the 80s that is like has a really good quality release on Blu-ray, and it's like I don't know if it was like ever thought of that it was going to be looking like this. It was certainly like it's going to be in a theater and it's going to be on VHS, but they didn't know what like an HD big TV Blu-ray release was at home. So sometimes it's interesting to watch, but I also think it's interesting to watch on like VHS or otherwise.
It sucks that I'm sure, and I know this is true of like music videos and specifically, but um, I'm sure it's true of some movies where there was a period of time in, I want to say, the mid 2000s where it was probably like 720p, and they were like, yeah, this is the gold standard. We're shooting the whole thing in this
Yeah.
quality, and unless you go back in and pretty much CGI it or something, it's just kind of locked in at that forever.
Yeah. It is interesting. Yeah. On those old video cameras, I haven't seen Inland Empire. That's one of the last Lynch's I haven't seen. I think he shot Inland Empire on some type of digital video. I think it was pretty high quality though, and like I know there's a ton of stuff on video. I think with film, I wish I knew more about this, to be honest with you, but I believe you can like go back in and, um, you know, as long as the sort of the negative or the positive or whatever is good, you can still upscale it in a way that you can't necessarily do with video. Um, so I had some questions here I wanted to ask. The most broad one is, what are movies? What are movies to you?
What are movies?
Yeah.
A motion picture is defined. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I grew up watching movies like a lot of kids, but I feel like as I got into like high school, I started to like them a lot more. And I can't really say exactly what it was. I wish it was sort of like this one movie or something that like changed everything for me. But I lived up in Townsend, which, if you're not familiar, to anyone outside of East Tennessee, is a very, very small town, right on the edge of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Twin
And
Peaks vibes. Very much smaller
yeah,
than Twin Peaks, but very Twin Peaks vibes.
yeah. And honestly, looking back on it, where I lived was super cool and really beautiful. But when you're like a teenager, is really boring. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to do that. You want to like go to your friend's house or walk around Target for an hour or something. You don't want to be stuck up in the mountains. So, I imagine part of it was that, you know,
Hmm.
um, I think maybe there's just a lot of free time and you're kind of isolated. So what else are you gonna do? So,
Yeah.
um, I guess when I think about movies now, um, my favorite thing about them is, you know, not to get all poetic or whatever, but I like movies because I feel like it's just somebody capturing just sort of like a moment or an experience in like a little box, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, this isn't going to cover everything about the world or life or even my own existence, but it's a part of it and I've captured it and here it is. And you can check it out too and see if you get a little bit of that. So that's my favorite part of film as like a medium. And whenever I can really feel that, I tend to like those movies the best.
That's a great way to put it. What's the first movie you remember as like loving as like a teenager adult, like as like a as sort of Big Taylor, you know?
Yeah,
Like for me, I remember my parents had a Skinamax, and it was great. And I remember when I was 13, I sat down and watched Boogie Nights by myself, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life." Probably, I don't know how appropriate that movie is for like a 13-year-old, um, but I loved it. I was just like, "This is cool." I still like, I probably rewatched that movie so many times um, when I was, teenage, young adult years, and this is the reason I then Boogie Nights, and I was like, who made this? And then when I was 13, it was like right when Punch Drunk Love came out, and so then I watched like Punch Drunk Love and Magnolia, and tried to watch as much of that of P.T. Anderson's PTA stuff as I could. But yeah, what about you? What was like the first? Is there like a moment like that where it's like the first, like, okay, this is, now that I'm a big person.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to decide like where I'm drawing that line for myself and my age and stuff. I remember a couple of memorable like theatrical experiences, one when I
Hmm.
was a little younger and one when I was a little bit more of a like late teens. The, Return of the King. I saw that in theaters opening night and I
Great
remember
one.
that was the first movie I'd ever gone to that had just like the audience fully engaged, just going
Mm.
nuts. I mean, like applauding multiple times throughout. People were like bursting into like laughter, crying loudly. Like, I mean, people were like so into it, and I like felt that energy, you know. So that was probably when I was younger. I was probably like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Um, I I want to say I didn't really go on my like more like in-depth deep dive into movies and started finding stuff outside of kind of just like mainstream stuff in earnest until probably like 2015.
Hmm.
So, before that, you know, I did have a similar feeling when I was watching like I think I went to a midnight release of Inception and I just kept turning to my friend and being like, "Oh my god." Like I don't know, I was loving that movie, dude.
Yeah.
Um
I missed that in
and
theaters. I really missed. I really think I screwed up. I would have loved to see that in theaters.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Nolan, man, I mean, I'm not gonna say he's like my favorite director, but like anytime he puts something out, like I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna see it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I honestly, I loved Interstellar when I first watched it at home a couple years ago, and then I went and saw an IMAX like a couple months ago when it got re-released, and that was crazy to see in IMAX. I adored that. I couldn't. It was like, yeah, I just his movie. He's such a theater movie guy too. You can tell, like he's wanting to, he really wants that
he
theater
loves this.
experience.
Yeah, it's all the spectacle. It's all big and loud and crazy, and he loves to build up. I think my favorite thing about Christopher Nolan is he like really builds up to this really super tense, super emotional, like high stakes kind of climax. And I just
Hmm.
like I'm a sucker for that, man. Like I get
Yeah.
so into that kind of thing. So
Do,
um
it's interesting. I kind of want to ask. So, do you have a? I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain my thoughts on this in a way that makes any sense to anybody, but um, that thing you described is sort of like kind of, I don't even want to say audience aware, but sort of like building to the spectacle, trying to put on a show. Me and my brothers and my friendish, we have this thing about movies versus films, and it's like one of my brothers is more of a film guy because it's like trying to think of stuff that would like be more films. It'd be like of course I'm blanking off the top of my head, but like Christopher Nolan, we always like, if you categorize some directors as like Christopher Nolan's a movie guy, like Spielberg's a movie guy, Howard Hawks is a movie guy. David Lynch has a lot of movie in him, but he's certainly like, films are more, I guess, like more, they're less trying to put on a show, and it's almost like it's the thing that are just sort of more arty. And movies are like more, certainly Michael Bay makes movies, right? And
yeah,
a lot of that type of stuff. But do you have a sense of like, do you kind of like classify movies or films or motion pictures or cinema or however you'd like to call it in your head, like when you're going to see something like Transformers versus you're going to go see like, the new PTA movie or something else? Like you said, you watched a lot of indie films. Do you kind of have that? Do you go into it with like different approaches when you go watch something?
Yeah, I don't really mentally, I don't know if I would categorize them like in my head. Like, I mean, I've certainly never been like, this is a movie, this is a film, like what you're describing, but I understand your sentiment. Like, yeah, because like, I guess if I was gonna like put it like a movie like The Lighthouse or Paris, Texas, like those movies are more like films
Those
versus
are films. That's a great, yeah, those, I would agree. Those are both films, both great films.
I am pretty anti-movie snob. I'm just going. I'm gonna shoehorn my little rant in here if I can.
Same, absolutely.
There's
Speak
certain
your
people,
truth, King.
Well, there's certain types of people that claim to love movies or claim to be movie buffs or cinephiles or whatever, and I just don't really vibe with them as people, I guess, or their approach anyway. And it's sort of like opposite ends of the spectrum, right? You have people that are like, I'm a big movie buff, but I only watch franchise movies and some Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, right? And any indie movie is just boring and pretentious. Hate that. Hate that. I can't talk to that person about movies. But on the opposite side of that, I can talk to these people, but movie snobs do sort of irk me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like whenever it's like, oh, I won't watch Marvel, right? Like, dog, I love watching all kinds of movies, and that does include franchise movies, and big blockbusters and whatever. I guess my approach going into a movie is I like kind of ask myself two different things: is like, how well does this accomplish what it is trying to accomplish, and how does it make me feel? Those are the two biggest things, right? Because like, there have been movies that I've watched that I've like recognized were like, this is really well done. Technically speaking, super proficient. I feel horrible watching this movie. What was that? I
But
think it
like
was
in
called
a way that
Hounds
you
of...
want, or like bad, horrible, like you.
It's the movie. I remember it was Hounds of Love. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that.
It's not a true story, but it's based off of an amalgamation of true stories where it's like pretty much this teen girl is abducted by this couple, and they just repeatedly do horrible, horrible things to her. It's a well-made movie. It made me feel dead inside. So, won't ever watch it again. Probably wouldn't recommend it, but I can recognize like, you made it really well, man. So,
was that like the, was that the like intention? Like, is it, I've not seen the movie. I don't know anything about it. Was that like the intention? Like, was it trying to make the audience sort of feel bad in a way?
I would say definitely. I mean, I would say like, hey, we're trying to show you like, this is pretty awful stuff, right, folks? So,
yeah.
I kind of shudder to think of like the opposite of that, where they're like showing it and being like, this is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I think like, yeah.
Have you seen Sallow? That's the movie I always think of when that.
I don't really have a desire to check that one off my list, man. I just, there's certain ones and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know. I read someone posted something online once, and they're like, in your final moments while you're dying, your brain will just sometimes shoot random images,
Mm.
and it would be terrible if one of the last things you experience before death is just an image of like a movie like, Salo or something, right? Or
Mm.
some like gory video off of rotten.com.
Yeah.
So, um, that's not exactly why, but it's the sentiment, I don't know.
You know,
Uh,
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. It's funny. I gotta tell, you probably find this again. This is like a local. I'm making notes because I do want to ask about a couple things you said, but when you said Rotten.com, I love not so much the shock side of Rotten.com, but shout out Rotten.com. If you ever, I think it might still be up, but the Rotten.com, I think it's the library or the archive or whatever. It was like for like early internet, like 2001, 2002. I'm gonna like, what is it? Is it the library? It had like the best. It was like they had like things. They had the whole section on conspiracy and like the Majestic 12 and New World Order, and it was all like text based. And it was like sort of like a almost like Wikipedia before Wikipedia for like just weird occult travel, sideshow, hoaxes, conspiracy. I used to just read through that, like loved it. It was like this really, really old thing. But what's funny about Rotten is, so because of that, I follow these like movie shirt sites. That's where I get all my clothes basically. And one of them did a Rotten.com shirt. And what's funny is I wear like a movie shirt every day. Is when you see me, I'll probably be in some type of movie shirt. I like them. And one of the I think maybe the only time I can remember getting someone that said something about any of my shirts is when I wore my Rotten.com shirt to the dump, to the Blount County dump, and this like lady who was just throwing away a truckload of stuff. She had like this old beat up truck, was like, Rotten.com, I love Rotten.com. Just started yelling at me. And I was like, hell yeah, lady. I was like, yeah. I remember, she's like, I remember going there. That was so gross. Man, that's such a great shirt. And I was like, hell yeah, lady. She's she's probably 40s or something.
It's a deep cut, so.
Yeah. Just, there was like other people around, but she just screamed at you, Rotten.com. And, yeah, loved it. Yeah, Salo is, so the, about this, Sal, I do recommend. It's one of those things like, I probably will. I can't imagine when I'll next watch it. But I will say, like, for me, for that type of stuff, like feeling awful like that, that movie probably made me more mad at like rich people and people with power, and made me like more want to sort of like, I guess, like pick up a brick and like throw it through some type of bank window, allegedly. Gotta add that, like, or some type of window, like, I guess probably more than almost any other movie I can imagine. Because for me, it's like with Sal, it's like, I think about like, exploitation at work, or like, on my channel the other day, I talked about my first job was making like $5.25 an hour or something, and like, minimum wage still hasn't increased like a lot since then. And that movie was like, oh yeah, if like the people who control things or like whatever could get away with all of this stuff, it's like they would. And that one was also interesting, of like, because I think he got killed for that movie. I'm pretty sure, like the director of Pasolini of Sal, I believe, like it made the fascist party in Italy, like, or like this fascist group, like so upset that I think he was killed for it. So that was like why I originally watched it. I was like, damn, if like I will watch any movie that someone gets killed over.
Yeah, he died for it. I feel like I kind of need to watch it now. Actually. So.
Yeah, he got like short. I think like even before the premiere or like after the premiere, they like, because it's like, I think it's about like I think Salo was the name of like the fascist Italian state during World War II or whatever. Yeah, it is a hard watch, and I generally don't like torture porn or torture movies or like any of that type of stuff. So, but yeah, that's is there any movie that makes you feel bad? Maybe not in that way, or like feel really bad that you really like? Like, is there like one that you've felt like shit after seeing and then been like, well,
There's a movie, I think it's an A24 movie that's pretty recent called Close,
Okay.
and it's a French movie. It's about these two boys that are friends, and that's the saddest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life.
That
Uh,
sounds great.
I watched it, and the credits rolled, and I was just sitting on the couch with my wife, and I sat there in silence, and then I just sort of burst into full blown just fucking crying my eyes out, man. Sad as shit. But I don't know. I can tolerate that. That's a bad feeling, I guess. But like, I can tolerate sadness way more than like disturbed, like
Hmm.
because it's, I don't know. It's kind of a clean emotion
Hmm.
versus that other kind of thing is like a dirty feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not trying to suppress things. It's just like the vibe of it, you know.
Yeah.
I've only seen Hereditary one time, right? And the
Yeah.
thing about Hereditary that bothers me is not all of the gore and stuff. It's the scene with Toni Collette when she finds her decapitated daughter.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. And she just goes full blown hysterical anguish screaming. I That is very hard for me to watch, man.
Mm.
That is more disturbing to me than like any form of like gross out or torture or violence or anything. It's just like anguish. If you can
Yeah.
portray that really convincingly, and especially if it's not just the kind of more muted, like tears pouring down the face, like quiet cry, which is really popular. I
Hmm.
imagine because it's very hard to get actors to act that way, you know, like Toni Collette can do.
Yeah, she's
Um,
great.
she is great. She's a legend. Yeah, that kind of thing's very hard for me to watch. Oh, that would actually be another example. Hereditary. Actually, it made me feel horrible, but I think it's a great movie. So
Yeah, for sure. I still haven't watched Inside Llewyn Davis since it came out. Because that movie was just too sad for me. Uh,
yeah, it's depressing.
it's devastating. Yeah, that movie was was devastating.
Yeah,
Um,
but they have that fun little moon song they do. So
yeah. Have you seen any Fellini movies?
maybe.
Lestrada, Knights of Cabiria, 8.5.
No. I've only recently started to like this year. I made
Hmm.
it a thing. I was like, I want to watch more foreign language movies. So I have not gotten to this guy. But if you got one, you got a favorite one, I'll add it to the list.
Well, I'd love the reason I bring it up because I love when you said about Nolan before that he it's like a thing of like it's building to like an emotional point. It's a weird comparison because like Nolan and Fellini extremely different, but I think um two things we've been doing Fellini Wednesdays at our house, which means that basically we're just depressed as hell for like Thursday and Friday, like the whole day. Um so I think we've done like six or seven of his movies so far. But he also has the same. It's almost like to the movie film dynamic. He's like a film guy. He's like a movie guy masquerading almost as a film guy. In that like his movies almost appear aimless or like wandering or whatever, but they sort of reveal themselves to be building to this emotional point in a way that reminds me of something like an Interstellar or an Inception or for like modern audiences. And they're super good. They are insanely depressing though. A
Yeah.
lot of them, like mixture of depressing and hopeful and funny. He's one of the funniest directors because it's just like they're all movies. Especially if you grew up in East Tennessee. For me, I connect with him as an East Tennessee guy because like I don't know. My therapist actually told me about this, but apparently there's something in Northeast Knoxville called the Fellini Kroger that's like known like for
Yeah.
just yeah, I never knew about that. And it's known for like being, just having like sort of weird, like, kind of circusy type people and stuff that goes on there. But it's very much all of his movies so far that I've seen are just about like poor people in post-war Rome, and like just their interactions. And just so it's a bunch of Italian people in the 50s just doing hand gestures and, all kinds of stuff. So they're extremely funny, but then they kind of like secretly build to this emotional point that's like just devastating. So
Yeah.
would yeah, maybe episode 2 when you come back we can do like a couple Fellini movies or something. There's Goodfellas takes a lot of stuff from Eva Alone because Eva Alone is just basically it's like a group of friends. It's probably his like most upbeat one, but it's just a group. It's like means like big calves, like big young cows in like I think either Italian or the local language to Rome, and it's like a bunch of guys. It's just like a bunch of like aimless 30 something, 29 something dudes. And like one guy specifically is like trying to cheat on his wife for 2 hours, and it's just like there's just like the various stories, and yeah, it's really good. That's to your point about film snobs too. That's actually, I have a lot of anger at film snobs because like in sort of my also in my desire to not be seen as a film snob, because I just love movies and want to share them and talk about them and everything else. That was one thing I was upset with about Fellini in particular. It took me so long to watch a Fellini movie because I was just like, oh, it's going to be some Italian movie from the 50s and it's going to be 2 hours of watching a bicycle or something.
Yeah.
Something like, that you have to like, almost like, put upon yourself to watch. And nothing against any movie like that, but couldn't be the further from the truth from Fellini. They're like, just like, if they came out today, I feel, and like transposed into English, they'd just be great and like very entertaining in the same way that like Bridesmaids or something is, or like a Will Ferrell comedy. It's like they're like as funny as something like Old School in their own way, and like also in a very similar way. So
would you say that film snobs by and large are anti Fellini or like pro?
I think everyone's pro Fellini. He's so good. Like he's both a movie and like he's a movie and like I don't. To me, I'd be curious to meet the person who doesn't like his movies, to be honest with you. I think everybody just loves him when they watch him.
Yeah.
I think. Because, like, if you go into him as a film guy, they're so rich and they're so devastating that, like, and they're so well done that, like, I think they're as good as any film anybody's ever made. But, like, in terms of just entertainment, like, if you just sat down and were like, I want to watch something like, again, yeah, like Talladega Nights, like, you'd probably laugh as hard at, like, La Strada in parts and like Eva Delone as you would at like Talladega Nights or like any of the Coen Brothers stuff or something.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, not to circle back to that, but that divide between like film and movies, as you say, right? I think a lot of it's because like it's reminding me of like you're talking about this Fellini, like those could be just as entertaining as like a modern American comedy blockbuster type thing, right?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting this like big divide that is seemingly occurred with movie watchers, moviegoers now, where they, you've got a big group of people that are like, I only really want that which is like conventional. I want it to be explained to me. I want it to be stated plainly. I don't want a lot to be left to the interpretation, and it's got to be pretty blunt. I don't really want to like delve into subtleties, versus the other people, right, who can watch movies that are outside of that box. And I remember when I first watched, it was The Witch. Yeah, it was Robert Eggers' The Witch. I remember that I liked it for the vibes, and I did land on liking it, but it was kind of a hard movie for me to watch at the time. Simply because I was just not used to that sort of like style and pace and things like that, and I guess I just wanted to take this thing to get on my soapbox and say, if you're a movie lover, quote unquote, self-described, and you do find yourself not like really digging that kind of thing, just keep trying it a few times. And eventually, if you need to watch the YouTube explains the movie videos, check that out, read an article. They will grow on you, and you will sort of almost. This sounds pretentious, I think. You'll learn to watch them. You'll learn how to watch them, and then they will become entertaining. They won't be slow and boring and pretentious. I don't need to explain that to you, Jeff, and probably a lot of people who listen. But on the off chance some like Marvel guy is just in here and he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm just gonna listen to this right now. This is to you, okay? In fact, now I think that when it comes to newer movies, I still see blockbusters, but I just find that I'm a lot more interested in usually the smaller budget movies that come out, just because I think that they're trying to do something different and unique and something kind of fresh. So.
Yeah. Okay, so you picked this movie to watch so as I understand it, like indies, just like something cool. Like, what else was on your mind when picking this one?
I don't know. I guess the thing I like about this movie is that it's got a lot of the things that I like. I'm a big fan of movies that just kind of have like a bunch of like, I don't know, something that's kind of weird. So it's just kind of off. I'm a big fan of movies that are set in our world, or seemingly our world, but it's sort of a sci-fi, sort of a fantasy. It doesn't really have to be super overt about that. And one thing I liked about this movie is that I feel like it does a lot with a little, because it's relatively lower budget for a sci-fi movie, right? I think it was like $20 million or something like that. And I think that it's limited locations. It's just kind of like this guy's house and then the woods and this compound. And I don't know, it's kind of got that like cool time travel recursive loop thing going on. You mix in elements of mystery solving, right? Because it's like, what is this? This is a weird thing happening. It all kind of clicks into place in the end, Also, just love a lot of the imagery in it. Just the bloody gauze mask thing is just like, it's super simple. It's just so fucking cool to me.
Yeah, I really. What's your rating on it?
Probably 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. What is your rating scale? Like, is that like solid recommend? Is that good? Is that great?
4 out of 5 is a movie that I'm definitely going to be like telling anyone, like, you should definitely watch it.
Gotcha.
5. I don't really love to give 5s very often. I'm just hesitant to. I don't know why, but it's got to like fire on every cylinder possible, and it's got to be like, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen, kind of.
Yeah,
I only give out a couple of those probably a year.
Gotcha. Yeah, my scale is a mess. It's four stars is like a solid recommend. 5 is a masterpiece. 5 is like, I wouldn't change anything about this. But then it goes to 6 and 7. 6 is like, I think it might be top 100, and then 7 is like top 10, top 15. 3.5, yes, I told you it's a mess. 4.5 is like near masterpiece. 3.5, like recommended if you're into this sort of thing. 3 is like recommended if you're really a freak about this thing. And then, but below 3, it's like, it's pretty rare for me to go below 3. But that's like, just overall I wouldn't recommend this, because there's just, I don't know, just wasn't a fan of it.
I always feel like I award points for things that I like, even if I think the movie's bad. It's like, well, the movie sucked. I thought everything about it was pretty bad, except it had some pretty cool, like, I don't know, lighting sequences, or you know what I mean? Like, that setup and the lighting, that was really cool throughout. So I give you some points, I don't know, 3. Mine is inconsistent, man. I go 0 to 5. And 3 is like, that was fine. When you're bored at home and it's on, you got nothing to do, sure, watch it. That's fine. I'm not mad I went to the theater, I guess. But most movies land around 3.5 for me, which is like, pretty good. Yeah. So
that's cool. Yeah.
I'm not.
I think I would probably go. Yeah, honestly, I was grappling between a 4 and 4.5, and honestly, almost 5. I really quite like this. I really love this movie. I thought, it just kind of hit, and that just, I mean, everything's like a me or you thing, but I love this sort of, in general, like, I'm a sucker for, like, Groundhog Day and Edge of Tomorrow, and any of these sort of like recursive causal loop or time travel movies, but like. Yeah, I thought the style of it was really interesting. It was shot. I really loved the way it was shot in that very 2006, 2007, like, Minority Report. I think it's probably 03, like Xbox 360 kind of like grainy film. Like, I don't know. It just like I don't know if the viewers are going to be able to see. We have this on screen, and it's like the scene where he's like kind of on the roof and whatever. There's just like all these sort of beautiful deep shadows. I appreciated, to the point of conversation about like movies versus films. Felt like he was trying to make a movie. Like, he has some showmanship to him in this. Like, he was trying to, like, kind of dazzle you. But the thing that it'll take a movie up to a 5 for me is like if it really moved me in some way. In this, I think it kind of almost got there, which is why I think I might go 4.5 on it, because I really appreciated, like, it seemed to me like a parable, whatever. It's like, I was impressed with how much he like didn't just do like a typical sort of causal loop type story. Like I'm thinking of, I liked Run Lola Run, from like 97 or whatever. Like she keeps repeating her day, but like I thought like that movie didn't really move me a lot emotionally. But like this one, I thought it like the stuff about like I felt like kind of almost from the beginning, like it's very much like a sort of it felt to me like he's like dissatisfied with his life. He's middle aged. He's like, it's almost like a story about adultery as much as it is about like time travel, which I thought was like adultery and like desire for, it's like he almost wants an off ramp to this life he's about to like start. And like, that's what it felt like, of just like, he's kind of like, how much of this is like, because even before he starts like getting all the messes and the time, he's really ready to have a story like this where he's like, gets to go see a naked lady and do it. It felt like that. So yeah, what do you think about all that?
No, absolutely. He's just waiting for that opportunity, right? Like
Yeah.
I thought, if you just take it at face value without thinking any further about like what's going on with this guy, it's just kind of nuts, because seemingly his intent is just to like go back home and be like, all right, I just want to go back and things to be normal. And he just kind of keeps accidentally fucking that up. And in the process of that, he becomes like this really horrific person,
Yeah.
because he either, maybe like you said, he's kind of secretly like, hell yeah, like I was just waiting for my opportunity, or because he's like, well, I have to make things right. He becomes sort of like, I don't know, holds a woman at knife point and makes her take off her clothes.
Yeah.
Ends up causing the death of somebody. He becomes like a pretty nasty guy. And what is the ultimate goal? I just want to go back home to my life with my wife, I guess.
Yeah. It's funny you say, yeah. He sounded almost like it's like a Trump nickname or something. Like, what's is Hector in the movie? Nasty Hector too. Just, I can't do a Trump impression, but
cannot either.
He's a nasty.
I was trying
guy.
last night, cannot do it.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Hey, what's your?
To this?
I don't want to go into off topic. What are the odds you think of a direct like fight between the government and like A24 at some point?
Over like censorship or something, or
just like, we don't need these kind of movies. We need to get back to the basics. We need more Top Gun Mavericks. This is all just, you can imagine.
So that's a great question. I think like, I would say globally, it feels like there's a trend towards like authoritarianism and, whatnot. And generally with authoritarianism, like that brings censorship and whatever else. And certainly like a lot of Trump's base and supporters, I think, would want to, this could be its own whole podcast topic, right? But like, I think some of the reasons that a lot of them went particularly insane was, like the degree to which like the stuff that they like, the achievements and like, to the extent, achievements or like winning political thing, like, elections and whatever, getting more political power has not really been matched culturally. And so like, Hollywood and the film industry is still pretty like, I don't want to say left, but like pretty normie, like, neoliberal, mainstream Democrat, etc. And like a lot of just the institutions, like, you can't there's stuff at Trump rallies that you can say that you can't say at most jobs, like you'd get a talking to from HR. So it's like, I think we'll probably see more stuff that's catered to those folks, just because like there's been like, thinking of like Joe Rogan podcasts and like I forget what someone called it, like I want to say the intellectual dark web, maybe I'm using that term wrong, but like all that type of stuff of like, the Joe Rogan and all the like sort of comedian right wing kind of podcast like environment. I think there'll be more stuff that like kind of, I don't want to say is inclusive of those people, but I would imagine there's gonna be more of that type of stuff. And I think like generally when you have like more authoritarian stuff, there's more censorship, and like, and but that doesn't necessarily mean like, we talked a little bit about like Scarface at the beginning of the episode, like Scarface being so cool that it caused a lot of the censorship. And like, honestly, the era under the Hays Code, like some of my absolute favorite and most like, I think some of the most like lurid and psycho, like, some of the most like lurid and psychosexual and crazy movies were done from like the 40s, 50s, and, early 60s and 30s while that was happening. Now, it wasn't necessarily explicit, but I think people sort of find a way under that, and honestly a way that might be exciting, because one of my personal complaints about a lot of modern movies is that they're almost like too obvious, and they're not like implicit, or they're not like, they don't use like the advantages of movies and films as like a there's like all the advantages in movies and films have in sort of communicating emotions and stuff indirectly and uniquely. And so if there is more censorship, then, maybe that'll help people sort of figure out other ways to get some of these messages across, which I think it will, just kind of be good for movies and film.
Right.
So I think there's some of that, but then it's also weird. Like, I would imagine, I'd be curious, like specifically uniquely to Trump as opposed to other authoritarian leaders. He's very much like a big movie and film guy, in a way that, like, the whole thing about, I don't know if this will get banned from any, like distribution outlets because I don't know if I say that name, but the guy who famously ran Germany very poorly in the 30s and 40s, him being a failed art student, right? That's like a big common thing that people know. I think in another life, Trump would have been, probably most lives, Trump would have been much happier as like a Broadway producer or a movie producer, because he loves movies and he loves like Broadway shows, and he loves like the idea of being a star in classic Hollywood, and like very much in like an old school New York guy kind of way. Mm-hmm. That like, if someone had just sort of taken him aside and be like, all right, you get to produce like Broadway shows, then like, I think he probably would have had a much, much happier life than whatever he's doing now, which seems to me like a very sad life, just in general. So I think like unique with him, he'll probably want to get more involved in like the movie and film business, both as like a cultural thing of like, I think the right wing wants sort of more influence in that sphere of America and however they want it, but then also him specifically, he's more interested in it. But like, there might be sort of a countervailing force with him, because like his favorite movie is Sunset Boulevard, which is probably the very funniest fact about Trump. I don't know, have you ever seen Sunset Boulevard?
No.
Okay. Shout out for every, like, I know I make a lot of recommendations constantly, but like the fact that Sunset Boulevard is Trump's favorite movie is one of the funniest things you'll ever like. It, like, if you watched it, like, you'll probably laugh for like 3 days, like a straight 3 days after watching the movie, because the movie is like, it's 1950, which I think is like the best year for movies for me. There's so many great movies from 1950, but Sunset Boulevard might be the best, and it's about a like a former Hollywood starlet who is no longer a star, and like it's sort of like a film noir about like kind of it's I say film noir, but it's more like a universal horror movie, like Frankenstein. Like, she is basically like a Frankenstein or like a Wolfman or Dracula or something like that, because she's this like old starlet who was a film star in the 20s and during silent movies, and then like she's not a star anymore, and she's older, and it's like her almost trying to, like, she meets like this sort of younger writer, and like she, like, it's like this sort of May-December romance with him that he doesn't really want, but she still wants to be a star, and it's really macabre, and it's all about sort of like Trump's biggest, like, I can see why it connects with him so much on a visceral level, because like he doesn't ever want anyone to stop talking about Trump. Like, that would be the big, like, if he just got forgot, that would be his biggest horror, and that's the horror of this movie, is like everyone's basically forgot about this lady. So
that's fucking crazy.
It's one of the, like, he screened it for journalists and people, and like on Air Force One, and he, like, they like write about him going into like this wistful kind of like mode when he's talking about it, and you can tell it's just like the most horrifying thing, because it is a very horrifying movie. It's a phenomenal movie, a David Lynch favorite. I think that's part of the reason I'm pretty sure it's part of the reason he named Mulholland Drive, because he wanted to make, like, I think the two of the bigger roads like going through Hollywood are Sunset Boulevard and Mulholland Drive, and like the Hollywood Hills. And very kind of similar content about like the nature of stardom in Hollywood and the toxic like relationship people have with fame. But yeah, it's interesting that that's his favorite movie, and then his favorite movie is Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme. But specifically, the version of Kickboxer where he has his son Eric get up and fast forward through all the non-fight scenes, so it becomes like a 45-minute movie. I'm gonna probably do that for the podcast at some point, of just like try and like do the Trump version of Kickboxer, because it's just a funny way to watch.
Double feature.
Yeah, that would be a great one. Sunset Boulevard and then a fast forwarded version of Kickboxer. Do you think though? Are you worried about the censorship or?
No, I just sort of think. I guess specifically wondered if it would ever be like some politician straight up is like calls out like the bigger indie movie studios, right? Like just any of them. I can imagine waking up one day and seeing that headline, right, where it's like, so Marco Rubio calls out Neon Rated for being whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wondering if that's if I can check that off the bingo list.
It seems like they would almost want, like, I don't know, it's hard because I feel like the coalition that elected Trump is so weird in that it's like you got a lot of religious people. And then, but you also got like a lot of people who are like, I guess, more classically libertarian, who just want to like be able to say like slurs again. Like there's a fair amount of those people that are just like, yeah, I just want to be able to say my words. And it's like,
I want that in guns and weed.
In guns and weed, yeah. And they, so it's a weird coalition. So I think that's a tension that'll play out probably in his administration, because it's like, you got some people who are like, I don't want any. And they're like, they'd be happy if like we went back to a place where you didn't always have explicit, LGBTQ stuff in movies,
right?
Or like you didn't have any potential. Like I do think that is for sure, but probably independent of even just because there's so many people and they have a fair amount of power. I would imagine like Disney and some other folks are like, especially for kids stuff, they'll be like anything that could be perceived as kids stuff. They'll be probably pulling back on any like LGBTQ content, which is super unfortunate. But yeah, I think
I guess
go ahead,
Disney would be the lightning rod more than the others, right? It already is. So
yeah. Okay, so how many times have you seen Timecrimes?
Honestly, probably only like 3 or 4 times. So yeah. It's one that I watched and I remember really liking, and I revisited. There's this super rad collectible Blu-ray that is out of stock, and it's like $60, and I wish I just bought it, but
that fellow
it came
no?
with like,
this guy might have got this. I don't know if this was $60, but
that might be the basic version. Is it like a Umbrella is the company?
Yeah, it is Umbrella. Yeah,
so that's the kind of standard one.
That's
there
the
is
standard
one
one?
that's
okay.
It's that one, but it just comes with other stuff, right?
Gotcha.
It comes with like a couple of prints. I think there's a book that it comes with. It's a whole behind the scenes thing.
That's cool.
God, I wish I just gotten that, just because that kind of thing is cool, and not a huge audience for it, right? So it is very exclusive by its nature. I would be surprised if they ever did a restock of it, but whatever. And movies like this don't typically have a lot of like behind the scenes like knowledge available on the internet. Like it's not like you're reading about The Empire Strikes Back, right? Where you could probably find books about it. And just for the sake of just, I don't know, I like to learn, like, anytime I watch a movie, one of the first things I do is I go to the Wikipedia and I like read about everything, and I like to read about the production and stuff, and usually pretty scant. It's like, yeah, production started in this city on this day, and this person was cast, and I'm like, no, I want to see, like, I want to know, like, for example, in this movie, this research station there, right? Was this already there? Was this a place? Did you guys build a lot of this? Did you add stuff on, or some of the things like some like the weird power lines or whatever? Is that effects?
The computers and stuff is like, are those like old Raspberry Pis or what? Like, how do you do? I'd love to know, as a filmmaker, how to do all that stuff. Like those the big machines in there. Like I was curious how they did like the big like hydraulic press in all the water and stuff. Is that like, did they make that or? Yeah.
I would assume. I love that. And there's a lot of movies now you watch and there's not really a question of like, how did they do that? Because it's like, oh, it's just CGI, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just, good or bad. Even if it's great, it's like, oh, that was CGI. Um, to not to transition completely, but like the movie that you recommended, the 1960 Time Machine, I kind of thought that a few times of like, I genuinely don't really know how they did this shot, just because I don't know. I don't know the tricks of old Hollywood very well.
Yeah.
The very opening with like all these different clocks flying through a void, right? I was like, that
Oh
looks
yeah.
so cool. Like, I want to know exactly how you guys did that.
You think that's where Pink Floyd got the opening for Time? I was curious when I watched that. I wrote that down last night. I was like, I wonder if that's where they got, if they had seen that, because I
Yeah.
think it was a British movie.
Yeah. It seems pretty British. Uh, it could be. It wouldn't surprise me. I do love the guy. It's just this kind of movie. Like I really do love because it's just like so tropey, right?
Mm.
Like, yeah, of course, the guy who builds the time machine has a fuck ton of clocks in his house for no reason,
Yeah.
Just why? Because I love time, and how do I show that?
Yeah.
Um,
I did
then the
want to ask you
guy,
about that. If you, sorry, go ahead.
well, all the clocks go off, and then a guy who is guest pulls out his pocket watch to check the time, and it's very funny. So,
Yeah. I wanted to ask about that. So yeah, Taylor brought it up. I don't know. This is sort of meta about the podcast. I don't know how I'm going to do like the format of these, but yeah, the movie I chose was, I thought a lot about different movies to choose when I like just read. I tried to only read like a sentence or two about time crimes, but I knew like time travel, causal loop, and I was like, okay, what are some? I was trying to think of like, obviously Edge of Tomorrow or like Groundhog Day. Those would be like the obvious ones or something. But then I was like, what is like? I was curious. So the reason I chose Time Machine is I was trying to find like, I was like, what's the oldest, like when did they start, like what's the oldest one they did of like time travel or whatever? And I don't think it was Time Machine. I think it was a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court or something. I think it was like the first movie with time. I think it was like in the 40s. I think I have to look that up. But I was like, let me get an old one because I bet you like I'd be curious about. By 2007, I feel that like time machine, like time travel was like kind of like an understood concept. I mean, Back to the Future, obviously, like, another one. And, you know, I'm trying to think, like, Interstellar. But like, I guess it hadn't come out at this point. But like, I feel like Time Travel, Run Will Run was out at this point. I feel like it had been like, they don't have to do a lot of establishing, but yeah, what like one thing I noticed when I was watching Time Crimes versus Time Machine, I think your point about all the clocks, like, of course the guy who's into time travel, like, it's not that like it was just very much still, it felt to me like, oh yeah, they had to kind of like, they spent the first like 30 minutes of it just being like explaining almost like, okay, you got 3 dimensions and now you got a fourth dimension of time.
And they even have the whole like, hold on, I don't understand, run that back, like, just in case somebody didn't get it.
Yeah. I didn't know they went forward. So yeah, how do you feel these movies connected?
Time travel. No.
Do you feel these? I mean, it's okay to say not. Do you feel like these movies?
These guys both. I mean, I guess I think about the characters. They sort of remind me of each other in the sense that they're just sort of like really bold and brazen and sort of in some ways unafraid to just keep advancing even when things are going to shit. I would have
kind of dumb
out
guys
pretty quick, huh?
They're kind of dumb guys. I don't mean that like too pejoratively. These are not the two people I would have chosen to go descend in a time, like either forward or backwards.
This guy's going, so in the time machine, this guy's going forward through time. He sees London get obliterated by bombs, which somehow cause volcanoes to happen immediately, which is random. And he's like, let's keep going. And he just keeps fucking going. And I guess I dumb and bold, that's like he's a real explorer, I guess, to his credit. When I watch movies like that where someone's like out of their element, I just get stressed because I'm like, well, they have to get back home though, right? Like, don't walk away from that machine, dude. You need to like stay there. Like, I don't know. I would have bowed out after very quickly, I think.
He's pretty far ahead. He goes like 100,000 years or something. That's crazy. Is that, I think that's like the farthest ahead I think I've seen in a movie. I think. I mean, aside from,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of like even Star Trek's like, well, Star Wars is like millions of years ago, right? And Star Trek, like, I think it's not too far ahead.
I'm not sure. I'll say that this movie is both guilty and not guilty of something that I really don't like in movies about time travel or the future, which is uh it's guilty in the sense that it does the thing where it's like the time is 15 years from now and everything's super fucking futuristic.
Yeah.
Um like it cuts to like 1965 or something, and the guy's wearing this silver spaceman suit, and
Mm,
that's like the military's attire for some reason.
yeah.
Um, it's like in movies where it's like, the year is 2065 and we have flying cars and it looks like a Star Wars planet or something. And it's like, dog, just throw in a few extra 100 years at least, man. Like this is going to be dated in my lifetime.
Hmm.
Um, but then he does go like you said, like 80, 100,000 years in the future. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And I guess it would take that long maybe to turn people into Morlocks, as they're called. These ugly, scary guys. Oh, I had a thought about that future society when I was watching it. Um, it felt like this movie, or at least the last third of it, was sort of like a jab against communism.
Interesting.
That was my interpretation, because you have all these people, right? They're all young, they're all the same, they all wear the same kind of thing, they all have blonde hair. They're all they do is spend their lives swimming, eating fruit, hanging out on these things that the great men of the past built for them,
Mm,
right? So they're pretty dumb. They don't know history, but that's okay because their lives are great. Oh wait, no, it's not, because we secretly have this like underground group that controls them, that
mm.
gives them things, but they're the ones who control them, kill them, eat them. And it just sort of felt like, considering this movie came out in 1960, I was like, it just feels like that felt very much like yeah, you want to live in utopia, you young dumb idiots, but really, if you you want to swim and eat fruit, well, that you're gonna die. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway from that whole thing, I guess.
That's fascinating. Yeah,
And
the it was wild to see, like, I didn't expect them to be just like blue dwarves. Just like it was like such a like a monster
glowing red
movie.
eyes.
Yeah, that was honestly, I think so. I don't want to say. I think that was kind of my. I thought the movie, maybe it was just because like I don't think I've ever seen. I think it was George Pal or someone who directed that. I don't think I've ever seen any of his other movies, but like he seemed to have more confidence in directing like the fight scenes and stuff. I almost wish there was like kind of more action, because like as opposed to like a lot of the setup with time travel. Maybe that's me as a modern, like, being like, okay, I understand there's like time travel or whatever. Like we can just kind of get into it. I think I haven't
Yeah,
seen. I think I haven't seen the 2003 version of the Time Machine in like probably 25 years or 20 years. Probably like saw it when it came out or something.
I was a kid.
Yeah, I was a kid. Um,
But it makes sense that like they did it that way, because we have seen so many fucking time travel movies at
yeah,
this point, and I guess to them it was like, I've really got to lay the foundation for these people.
yeah. I thought they also connected. I thought it was, it was again in the same way that in Time Crimes the fellow was um, like kind of almost started dissatisfied with his life. I think it was the same with the second guy too, which had, I mean, again, spoiler, I think he just decides to peace out at the end of the movie and go live with his like his future lady, or maybe she's gonna bring her back. I wasn't really sure at the end of the movie, but
Yeah,
he did seem like, yeah, the sort of dissatisfaction of life and sort of being able to modify that with time, I thought was interesting.
right. The takeaway from that movie, I guess, is like, good for him, I guess, like he's got all the time in the world. Happy New Year. Let's
Yeah,
go to bed. Uh, I feel like Time Crimes was similar in the sense that he's like, all right, I'm this bald, doughy, middle-aged man,
yeah,
but now I've had this experience where I've proven that I'm a man, you know.
yeah,
So now I get to go back home to my wife and my life, and I can finally be happy again.
yeah. That is interesting. It is kind of like, Yeah, I didn't think of. I mean, yeah, the end of the movie of Time Crimes was. I really quite like the ending. I didn't expect it, that little twist where it's almost like, yeah, him having to like kill the idea of like still being sort of like a younger guy. It's almost
Right.
like, I think by like making it's like, all right, I got to choose between, it's like very much a conscious, like I got to choose between you and my wife, I guess. Um, yeah, felt very very dreamlike.
This young, innocent young woman who was, I guess, a good Samaritan is just the collateral for his
Yeah, it's
midlife crisis, you know?
it's a pretty
So,
expensive lesson
yeah.
for someone. Um,
I'm not
that's
sure
Go ahead.
if, well, I guess I'm trying to draw a parallel with the time machine. I'm not really sure if there's any sort of like sacrifice made ultimately, you know? But it's a different time, I guess.
He sacrifices his friends, but his friends are kind of like, they kind of think he's crazy, right? They're like, "Hey, we got to go." Like they keep saying like, "Well, it's time for us to go," when he's like, and they don't believe him, you know.
I guess it is, I guess that's true. He does witness like all of you guys are going to die in wars and this city will be destroyed. So I guess it does make sense for him in a kind of selfish way to fuck off to the future, you know?
It is funny that it's sort of presented as like kind of this unchanging thing. Like in Time Crimes, it's like very much he's like trying to make sure that he doesn't change anything. But in Time Machine,
Yes.
he doesn't even talk about like, hey, yeah, it's like there's gonna be a war. Like there's gonna be the Holocaust. There's gonna be there's gonna be genocide. There's gonna be 2 world wars and then nuclear genocide in like the '60s or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't really warn anybody.
And
Which is like,
does his presence actually do anything? Him walking around, talking to people, like, I
yeah,
don't, there was no real, I guess, concern about that, but I don't know.
that is, yeah. I don't know, and I'm curious like what his plan is, like what his plan is in the future. Oh, I did want to ask, what 3 books? So the movie ends, again, spoilers, with Time Machine, with him taking 3 books into the future, and I'm kind of curious, like, well, two-part question, I guess. Like, what do you think the 3 books that they were? I don't think they say, unless I just was totally glossed over at that point.
No.
But like, what do
And
you think he took?
I don't know, man. He probably just took some basic shit.
He
I feel
probably
like he
took,
probably took the Bible. I
yeah.
feel like he's a good Christian man
The
back in the
collected
day.
works of Shakespeare. He's British, right? Like, if you're gonna pick a guy.
Yeah. And then probably some shit by like, I don't know, Sir Isaac Newton or something.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
just some definitive like science book. I feel like I don't really know if it would be a very, I think that's probably why they decided not to answer it, because like the mystery is probably more interesting than saying what they were, you know? So
Could you think of 3 books that you'd want to take? I don't know if I
not the
could.
not the biggest
I
reader in the world.
Same, and I wouldn't take the because I feel like, but not on like any, I'm not particularly religious, but like not on any like religious grounds, I should say. But like I feel like that's already been done. Like, because it's like the book that probably was most commonly accessible to many people for so many years. So it's like, let's give 100,000 years. Like, let's try and, I guess if he's trying to restart society, start it from somewhere else, right? Um,
Yeah.
I was joking last night with my brothers who watched it with me, like, Baldur's Gate 2, Prima Strategy Guide, and then like a copy of Baldur's Gate, and I don't know what the third thing would be, but I guess they wouldn't have computers. But yeah, I don't know. That's like an
Uh,
impossible question, right? It's like, how do you,
3 books that are
yeah.
supposed to signify like somehow simultaneously like it explain the past and paint a bright path for the future. Eh, I don't
Yeah,
know, man.
I'd probably do, I mean, honestly, you couldn't go wrong with Shakespeare. Like, that's a fine choice, right? Like, I'd go with some big collection of something. Maybe, honestly,
Yeah.
one of those intro to, but then honestly, probably, I mean, they don't know how to do like, what is it, Grey's Anatomy? Like, I don't know, some medical textbook. Like, I feel like I'd go there immediately, and I'd get a paper cut, and it would just get infected, and I'd die. So like, I'd probably want something like just 3. Like, okay, let me survive for longer than like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And also, probably he's probably like, they probably have like immunities to disease. Like he's probably bringing all kinds of living in London in the 1900. Like he's probably carrying all kinds of stuff with him that's just going to wipe out that whole population of people. Surely,
It's probably going both ways. You know,
you think so? Yeah,
he's a dead man. All of his friends are dead. I mean, it's done. So, and they are too.
Yeah.
So, if I'm hell bent on being benevolent and fixing the world and making it better, it's gonna be like what you said, like cultural, educational, technological totems. Probably those three type things, right?
Yeah.
If not, I'm gonna bring something and just see what happens. Maybe like Jeff Foxworthy, You Might Be a Redneck, and just give it to them and see what happens. Is it gonna start a new religion, a new movement? I don't know.
You think they'd think that was a positive or negative thing? Like that's kind of commandments, right? Like you might be a redneck. Like it's almost not really commandments, but it's like, do you think they'd say like, well, you might be a redneck and that's positive? Like would they want to be or not be?
I'm sure they'll probably worship him as a god, right? I mean, he's on the cover of the book, so you'd want to be a redneck. So
yeah. What's your favorite? You want to be a redneck? Do you have one off the top of your? I'm trying. It's been so long since I've heard one. This podcast is getting really East Tennessee.
I have no idea, man. I can't remember these at all. I remember the redneck words they used to say, like mayonnaise, a lot of trucks here, and like that was apparently like in like 2003, like the funniest fucking thing people had ever heard.
That's still a good one. I think the one I remember is "Widja Didja." I think the line he said, you know, it's like you didn't bring your truck, would you? Did you, or something like that?
It all goes back to trucks. So
if you ever cut your grass and found a car, you might be a redneck.
Yeah, those are good.
When your son comes to your 8th grade graduation, you might be a redneck.
Are you Googling these?
Yeah, I just pulled up like, bless Jeff. I haven't listened to a Jeff Foxworthy thing in ages. This guy. That's cool. Well, cool. So, yeah, what's your rating of Time Machine? What does it get?
I'm probably gonna go. I'll probably give it like 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly. I wouldn't say it's like this is super cool. You got to watch this one. Like I'm gonna recommend it to everyone. But if somebody asked me about it, I'd be like, yeah, you should watch it. It's honestly, for a movie from the 1960s that is very heavily about sci-fi and effects, pretty entertaining and pretty well done. I really admired the physical, like, you know, we've got all these sets that were setting on fire and collapsing and blowing up, and I don't know. I always like something that's really practical. I was pretty positive feelings towards it.
Yeah, I think I would go 3.5 for sure. Like if you're into it, or if you're really into it, like those types of sort of kind of like they're almost like kind of nothing like 60s like sci-fi or whatever else. I think it was especially mercifully, you know, it was like right around like an hour 37 or whatever. So it's like the movie should have, you know, that was a perfect length for it. Like I'll watch pretty much any movie if it's like 90 minutes, 100 minutes or something like that. So I think I go the same.
It's well, I have a limited amount of knowledge as far as movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s and such. So I don't know. I will say this just for the sake of documenting it, that I'm sure there are others out there who surpass, but I would say you, Jeff, probably watch more movies than anyone I've ever met personally. So you probably got a better perspective on this one than I when it comes to, you know, that time frame or that era of film.
I don't know, to be honest. I appreciate. I don't. You know, I never know if that's a compliment or if it's just like a backhanded one. Not that I'm saying
that's not bad. I like movies. Others might not. I don't know.
I'm just thinking of my Hinge experience. You know, getting back on the dating apps and it being like, you know, just hearing like, wow, you watch a lot of movies. You know, just like it's almost like suspectingly, which, you know,
yeah,
I am what I am. But yeah, I
think
film
guy. That's a lot of things, so you never know.
I think
you wanted it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, for any of your potential hinge dates, you got my endorsement as one of the good film guys.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think the last question would be, would you, so I guess, what would you recommend after seeing, like, I guess two-parter, like, are you planning on watching any more of these types of movies, like, I guess from a, like, sci-fi 60s movies, or, whatever you'd call time crimes? And then do you have any recommendations? Like, if you like these two, then you would watch, what would be the suggestion?
Oh wow, that's crazy. I'm totally drawing a blank. Would I watch more 1960s and or time travel or sci-fi movies? Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to
Mhm.
broaden my horizons, and I like that kind of thing. Unless it's just like super redundant, kind of just unentertaining, uninteresting, I'm gonna watch it. So, um, when it comes to like typically like sci-fi, anything weird is I'm gonna gravitate towards that. I'm trying to think of what I would recommend. I don't know. I feel like time travel stories have now sort of had to evolve to a point where it's like, it's not so much a machine, so much as something happens to cause someone to like temporally become like unstuck in time, right?
Mhm.
And their consciousness is bouncing between like the past and present versions of their bodies, or
Mhm.
even like other reality versions of it. I don't really know. Um, I don't know if there's anything that's really coming to mind that fits.
I'm gonna go
I can
normie.
always
For
give
me, I'm gonna say Groundhog Day. If you haven't seen that, that's probably my favorite example of like, it's not really like, it's more stuck in time. But I think it does the most at sort of like explaining the not explaining, but exploring the, like, kind of the all the emotional stuff behind, like, wanting more time, or wanting, or having more time, or less time, or being stuck, and so on. And then the other one I would do, just because it was my favorite movie as a kid, would be Time Bandits. I haven't seen the new show. I don't know if it's good or not. But the old movie with Terry Gilliam is was one of my favorites. So those are the
yeah.
official two recommends from my side. Have you seen those?
I believe I've seen one of them.
Groundhog Day or Time Bandits?
Yeah, yeah, I would say Groundhog Day is this the one.
Gotcha.
I'm looking at time travel movies right now and movies that feature them, and I guess if you haven't seen it, oh, okay, I got a couple.
All right.
They're not super deep cuts. Looper's a fun time, really is. But or I think Looper's a fun time. It's not like the greatest movie, but I thought it was kind of cool. But more recently, there's a movie called Palm Springs, I think, or
Mm.
Palm Spring. It's got Andy Samberg and what is her name? She was just in The Penguin. She was amazing. I don't know. It's those two, and it is pretty much a Groundhog's Day. But even with that premise having already been done several times, it is really entertaining. It is a
Nice.
cool take on it, and yeah, I would recommend those.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time since I've watched Looper. I think probably when it came out, I watched it. I haven't seen Palm Springs, although now maybe that'll be, if we do. I say when we do another episode. There is a movie from 1963 called Palm Springs Weekend that I've been wanting to watch.
Oh
Um,
wow,
that is just like, I think like, it stars like Troy Donahue's like just this hunky guy from. He's a very not great actor, but he's in a lot of these melodramas I've been watching. I think it also has Connie Stevens, who's also um, in there. So I got it as part of a set. So we can maybe do Palm Springs Weekend would be just for the name. That'd be fun.
yeah, I like that
Yeah,
idea. Yeah, I'm down for any of these ideas. So,
cool.
um, cool, man.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug? You have a short film, right, that you're working on, and then
Yeah, I got a short film. I don't know if I don't have any brands or anything to plug, but if I finish my short film later this year, hopefully by the end of summer, check out the Hellcat on probably the internet.
yeah,
So,
we'll shout it out, put a link, and I'll update this show if you're watching this at some point in the future. And Taylor, thank you for being the very first guest of the Trade Movies podcast. I really appreciate it. It's been so fun.
oh wow, thank you so much, man. I'm honored.
Yeah. All right. Well, good talking with you, and I will talk to you later.
I'll see you at the movie. I don't know. You'll have to whenever you go, you'll have to have like your sign off phrase. But yeah, yeah. I'll see you later, buddy.
See ya.